In this video, we're going to talk about how to generate consistency and predictability in a product-based business. So let's dive right in. In business, we have to take risk, and we've talked in many other videos about stepping into risk and then coming back into a sort of balanced, the yin yang, and then stepping into calm and generating profit and using profit as a way to then move forward. And we mentioned in that video that if we had more profit and more cash in the bank, we would feel that we were taking less of a risk of doing the same task because we were backed up by a bunch of money. So we have to take risk. And so what I wanted to talk about in this video is how we can create consistency and predictability moving forward in a product-based business. And we're going to do a separate video on service-based businesses, but this video is focused around if you are a product-centric business. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was to create consistency and predictability from your customers. It's really important that you create consistency and predictability to your customers. So in reality, you get back what you put out. And so it's really important that when you're dealing with your customers and you're creating your products and your brand and all of those things, you are being consistent in the way that you operate, the way that you talk about your business and everything. And so your consistency gives people reassurance, and that is what we in the long term call brand value, that your trust with your customer. They trust you to deliver, and therefore they will buy your product on the basis that they know they're getting something safe and it is what you say it is, and you have that relationship. So the very first thing is be consistent yourself and build trust. So the next thing is you need to really think about the product that you're offering and what kind of timescales and size that product is. So what do I mean by that? In reality, you want to be selling products which people need to repeat purchase. The classic example, of course, is something like food. They eat it, it's gone, they need to buy it again if they liked it, obviously. You have many other products which are very slow in terms of the turnaround of repeatness, for example, washing machines. And so you buy a washing machine, you do all of that effort and research, and you maybe go to stores or trawl the internet, and then you purchase this washing machine. But in reality, and we'll come to some of these bits down the line on this video, but in reality, that's it. You've bought that. That's your relationship with the brand, and it kind of ends there. And then that washing machine could last 3, 4, 5, 8 years, and you've not really had any touch points with that brand. You've not really got any additional brand experience. You've not had to necessarily contact them, and it is what it is. It's just a washing machine, and there are ways around that companies should be doing in order to get you to the next time you buy a washing machine of the same brand. They don't tend to do it. And the same with a car, same with all of those things. And so in reality, what you really want is a product that has some kind of repeat. It gets consumed and it gets used and worn out, and it requires them to come back and buy it again. And the more frequently they do that, and the nature of your business is that you look after your customer, the more likely they are to stick with the brand they trust. So your mission is to create the ability to kind of know that you're going to sell more products. And as a startup, potentially your very first thing is to find that one customer, right? So will somebody even buy my product in the first place? As we then trade, our mission is to find this consistency and predictability in the fact that we know we're going to sell some units. Now, one of the things which I think is vastly underexplored in many business and marketing things is the value of applying to tender. So especially here in the UK, but I know in the US and other places, government contracts, council contracts, or district, or authority contracts, or even to larger businesses, housing associations, all of those kind of companies, they will put out tenders. Now, I believe personally that a lot of businesses can then create huge predictability They put a huge amount of effort into winning the tender, writing the tender, planning the. I mean, it's an awful lot of work, and a lot of people just bomb out and they don't want to do it, or they can't do it. But I believe that the really successful businesses, a lot of the ones that I've worked for, are very good at winning tenders. So they will approach councils and hospitals and the government and whoever. And there's websites that you can sign up to and subscribe to where you get the information about these things. And it doesn't have to be multi-million-pound projects. A university might offer a small tender, like £15,000 a year, every year for 3 years or something. When you get to I think it's about £15,000, £20,000, and you're a housing association potentially, or any kind of organization like that, then you're putting it out to tender. But if you win it, you know that you have got a contract year in, year out. They will spend with you for about that amount that they subscribe in the tender. For those 3 years, and then potentially you have to retender, but it gives you that consistency and predictability. One of the clients that I recently worked with last year, they won a contract for £500,000 year in, year out for 3 years, extended to 5 years. That gave them massive consistency in the business, predictability, and in fact they could actually service the customer better with that predictability. They could then ramp up, employ better, more people, better people, and actually deliver a better service with the reassurance that they were going to get that work for a longer period of time. So it works both ways. So tendering is a great way to create consistency and predictability in your business. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was selling through trade. Now, a lot of people, they're chasing the profit, and as many people will know, I'm a big fan of profit. But I think that one of the things which is underestimated is the sheer ease compared to selling direct to the consumer it is to sell to the trade. So, for example, if you are selling something to a supermarket chain, they're doing all the hard work about actually getting the money out of the customer. Now, of course, you might be on a 60, 90-day payment terms. That's a separate video. But you're selling to the trade, you're selling through what in marketing we call a channel. So, for example, a air conditioning company like LG would sell through air conditioning installation companies. Those installation companies would buy from LG, and then they go out and they win the contracts, and they might then actually win that contract with a house building company. So there's a food chain, but it is a lot more easier to sell through a channel than it is necessarily direct to consumer. You pick up the phone, you sell a few thousand units in one go. Now you make less profit, but what happens is you build a relationship with that trade, with that channel market, and it becomes much more predictable, and you can have more sort of contractual relationships. So there may be that if somebody wants to become a air conditioning installer, they have to demonstrate that they are installing X number of air conditioners every year, they're of a certain size, they're of a certain reputation. So it's a lot safer than potentially dealing with the end customer. Also, that installer knows all about these units, they can come to your training, they're already educated. You're not having to educate every single customer on these products. So selling through the trade is absolutely one of the most fundamental ways to make good money, solid money. Don't even have to necessarily be a household brand. In fact, in electronics as well, I believe, and I might be wrong on this, but the principle stands. So I was doing some stuff with Philips, and I understood that in actual fact, Philips were rebadging products which were made by LG televisions. So actually the product was made by LG, I think, and then Philips would just buying those off LG, rebranding them and selling them as Philips. So don't quote me on that, but within these industries there's quite a lot of cannibalism and sharing and scratching of backs and things like that. So but it's easier because you're dealing with a few hundred contacts rather than a few thousand. So selling products through a channel, approaching a retail chain and selling a product through that retail chain is far easier than trying to sell direct. So off the back of selling through a channel, which means that you create the predictability and consistency as you sell more. They'll say, right, every month we're going to order 1,000 a month, and you then you have that security. Is selling through a marketplace. And like Etsy or Amazon, obviously Amazon is the biggest marketplace in the world to sell stuff through, and of course then you're into a challenge, because like the other day I was looking for a microphone stand and I typed in boom microphone stand into Amazon and there were 5,000 results. So imagine turning up to an actual real live marketplace with your product, and all of a sudden you're looking around the marketplace and thousands of other people are selling something very, very similar. So obviously there's a drawback to that from that nature of the things. There are ways to get around that. Better descriptions, better Amazon works on a search engine thing, paid for advertising, better product imagery, better website that people might go to and then to check out your product, and all of those things. But the benefit of selling through those places is that they are live and active and moving forward all the time. People are actively searching and being involved in the marketplace. Amazon is actively selecting and recommending products to, if you bought this, we recommend that, blah, blah, blah. So the great thing is they are doing some of that work for you, and you have some kind of consistency in the environment and the model. So if you then break that down into something simple and say, well, what if I just went to a market every week? I have some goats to sell, and every week I take them to the market. Well, it works in the same way. Every week you go to the market, you show up, you have your goats, they're great quality goats, and and you know the market. It's a big market, and you know a lot of the people, and you can see some of the other players and some of the other goat farmers, and there is this bringing of people together. And you also then have all the tools and stats and insights and knowledge that the Amazon back end gives you in terms of, well, what is going on? Oh, I did this, I increased my price, that happened. So you've got this kind of bringing together. You're not just suddenly shouting from the rooftop of your office or your house saying, hey, I've got this product, into the space, right? You're engaged at least with other activity. So selling into a marketplace can be a great way just to provide you with the consistency and predictability, because you know that there are 2 billion people or something that show up on Amazon every day. There are this many people searching for this many things. You've got stats and numbers and things which can give you some kind of insight and predictability. So that's imagine that you went to the same market for 5 years, selling your wares, and then all of a sudden you went to a completely separate market in a separate country, in a separate town. So you can see the difference by turning up into somewhere like Etsy or Amazon or not on the high street, or all of those things. You are kind of getting yourselves engaged into that marketplace, and that gives you reassurance and consistency and predictability. So the next thing I want to talk about in terms of a product-based business in creating consistency and predictability is that sometimes we might sell the core product, and that if that's a larger product, then we're into the whole washing machine problem. And what I'm suggesting is in this bit is you create add-ons, you create additional services. So there could be services. We'll come to that in a second. But you would create additional products that kind of clip on to your main product. Hopefully those sort of things are more consumable and people need them more often. So if you have something which basically is bought and that's kind of it, could you think of things which you can then have more rapid, consistent sales of micro items that kind of clip into that product? For example, a PC, you can sell screens, you can sell mice, you can sell mice mats, you can sell, so it's not just the box, it's other things that you can sell when you buy something off Apple or Dell or one of the many, HP or whatever, especially Dell, though, because I was on their site the other week, so that's fresh in my mind. You can then configure the box with a bunch of other stuff. So it's not just that box, it is the mouse and potentially additionally like security software and blah blah blah, extra USB ports. And so you can actually then start to have some kind of metrics and create some kind of idea. Well, if we sell this big thing, we're likely to also sell these things over this period of time. So that then gives you some predictability and consistency that you're working with. So next up is the next layer of that, and that is to actually building consumables. And we all know you buy yourself an inkjet printer for next to nothing. They kind of give it away at a ridiculous price. And then you spend the rest of however many years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, buying ink cartridges at a crazy price, on the basis that you should buy the branded ones. Really, shouldn't you? Should you? Who knows? But you do anyway, just in case. And therefore, I've got a little HP DeskJet. I spend a fortune on the cartridges. I barely use the printer. They dry out all the time, and then I buy more cartridges. I think the printer was something ridiculous, like £30, like 6 years ago. So the consumables is what drives, once again, a larger product sell to actually then have ongoing engagement with the brand, ongoing opportunities to sell to the customer, and ongoing opportunities to make sure you are the brand, you are the top of tongue, tip of mind, top of tongue, top of mind. So you are there selling those small things, and then you can start once again creating this predictability. If we sell this many units over X number of years, we're going to sell this many consumables. So consumables are great for creating predictability and very good profit. One of the things which has become really much more popular in the last few years is subscriptions, and subscriptions for things that weren't necessarily thought of as subscriptionable beforehand. So for example, razors and food and recipes and things being sent to you in the post. And so now I know a guy, literally you could subscribe to his code advice email. Once a week he sends out a bit of code that you can work on, and you can send it back to him and he will actually grade it for you. And it costs you, I think, $30 a month or $15 a month or something like that. And he's got a few hundred people on this, and so he makes $4,000, $5,000 a month, just a little subscription. So with all your products, you could then turn that into subscription wine. You can turn that into packages of things that you could get for this level of subscriptions. And of course, you sign people up to a monthly thing, and then you have wonderful predictability, and then you can then use that predictability to expand your business, grow your business, and in the knowledge that it's good, we've got money coming in, no problem, let's go off and do this new thing. So subscriptions are just a fantastic way. You just have to bundle them really well, make it a bit of a no-brainer, keep it exciting and interesting, but subscriptions really work well. This next one is going to sound slightly weird to start with, and hopefully I'm going to explain why it's so good. And that is to actually add services to your product-based business. And in the other video that I'm doing, very similar to this, around how to generate consistency and predictability in a service-based business, is productize your service. So there's a flip side to everything, and in your product-based business, what you really want to be doing is adding on services. The knack is that you want to add on services which are kind of easy to deliver without it eating into your core production. So the best example I can think of is just cars, right? So you buy a car, it's a lot of money, and then of course it needs to be serviced, looked after, MOT'd and all those things after a few years. And especially if you buy it secondhand, every year you're going to have that thing serviced and MOT'd. And these are great because you want to go back to the place where you bought it. They want to build a relationship with you. And this is the whole thing with all of these things. It is about maximizing the touch points with your customer to build trust and relationship and the brand. So the very first thing we mentioned. So adding in services enables you to deliver repeat activity, but you don't want that to be then continually impacting on the production. So you wouldn't sell a car but then offer to repaint it necessarily every 6 months, or to replace the panels, or to swap the seats out. So it's not going to actually change the product itself per se. It is maintaining that product and providing services around it. So it could be cleaning services, it could be all sorts, but it isn't necessarily actually changing the product itself. So that's a great way. Then you absolutely know, I sold that car. 1 year from now, that person is going to come in, we're going to email them, we're going to book them in for a service, we're going to book them in for MOT, we're going to, you just create predictability. It's great. Basically, your whole mission is to create an environment in your business where you have some predictability, which provides you with enough reassurance that you can move forward and take some risks, hire that new person, invest in that new product without gambling the farm. So this next one is a little bit more conceptual, but it is to demonstrate continuous improvement. And why would I say that? Well, the thing is, we're into the mindset of the customer as well. So it's not just about locking a customer in to contracts or tenders or to create subscriptions or these sort of things. It's also about making sure the customer knows that you are constantly improving your products for them, right? You have that relationship with them. You are looking out for them. You care for them. You want your product to be the best it can be for them. So that conversation, that constant reminding your customer and actually doing this Kaizen, this constant iterative improvement of your product, is a great way to build that trust, which will in turn provide you with more consistency and predictability in your business. So it's a little bit one step removed, and some of the next few items are, but they start to become more nuanced and also more important, because it's these sort of things that buy people in psychologically into your brand. And we're nearly at the end of this video, but now we're into some really good stuff, which then sort of moves your product activity into a little bit more of a marketing activity. And what can marketing do to ensure that you have some kind of consistency in terms of generating sales and money? And one of those things is something called funnels. And the next three, this one and the next two, really are all interlinked. And what you are doing is you are creating your user journey. So we talk about this in Uber. We get customers to think about what are your communications out, but also what is your customer journey back into the business, through the business, that splashing of water down the mountainside to get to your golden house of enchantment, where they love your product and they want to stay and be looked after by your product. So funnels, which I hate the phrase really, I prefer user journeys, user experience and user journeys are so important when it comes to marketing, because it is absolutely crucial that you are understanding how people are engaging with your business and the places where you can improve and create some kind of tangibility and understanding. Well, if 6% of these people do this, then we should get 1% of X people doing Y as a general rule. Then you can say, right, well, if we plow an extra few £1,000s into the funnel up here, we should get more people here, which will grow us more. So we're starting to talk about sales funnels digitally, or even just with face-to-face meetings. And funnels have become a little bit of a trick tactic, salesy, regretfully. I mean, there's some amazing products like ClickFunnels, which is fantastic, but it's also been scooped up by a lot of the digital marketing sort of spammer scammers. And in reality, your funnels, and they're into, this trick funnel where you do this and then you do that, and it's like, why don't we just create this wonderful experience for the customer and let them decide? So you have to understand, and the reason why people go back and buy, maybe let's, for example, say a BMW. I know we've talked about cars on this video. So as soon as you buy a BMW, technically, as far as I'm aware, I don't own a BMW, you get a follow-up call, you get material, you get literature, you get brochures sent to you over a period of time. Probably Rolls-Royce sends you a Christmas card. They should do. You get looked after, so you get this, and in digital marketing, you'd get an email autoresponder. You create communication out, and then you create these lovely journeys back in, and you think all of that through, and therefore you engage with that customer and you make them feel yummy and welcome and warm and fuzzy inside and loving your brand. Send them useful information, all of those things. So funnels is absolutely key, because then if you can trigger funnels over time, you can create predictability, you can create consistency in your activity, you can start measuring through how and why your customer is doing what, where, when, how, how much will they spend, all of those things. So funnels are the start of really, really creating the push of your marketing and the pull through of their engagement in creating predictability and consistency in your business. The next stage is, on top of funnels, is, well, how do we do that? And this, hopefully I'll try and keep this one very short. We measure it. We measure. What gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets understood. So this is where a lot of micro businesses fall down. They fall down because they just don't have the capabilities, the software, the experience, the knowledge, all of those things. What should I measure? Everything? Well, that's going to be too much. So the concept of measuring everything is difficult but important, and all of those things. But in reality, you have to set yourself some KPIs, some key performance indicators, and that could just be, well, how many customers who bought X also then went on to buy Y, and then what was the time between that, what triggers them to do it, what emails are we sending to make that happen. So start measuring and breaking down exactly what's going on in your funnels. The last thing that I want you to look at in terms of creating consistency and productivity, and this works for both services and product businesses, is to utilize a CRM, a customer relationship management. And in there are all your products and services. In there are all your customers. In there are all your sales. They're all your conversations you've had with different customers. And in there is where you start creating your tag taxonomy. I'm not going to go into that in this video. We can do that in a just separate video. But you start profiling your customers, their engagements, their activities, the things they've said, their mindset, their attitude. You start profiling all that with tag taxonomy, and you put all of that into your CRM. And especially if you're selling through the channel, you then have to do what we call account-based marketing. Now, I believe that account-based marketing can be on a very granular level nowadays with a good CRM. So customer relationship management is, the basic things like an old-fashioned Rolodex. What company do they work for, or who are they, what's their name and details. But the technology goes way beyond that, because the capability to segment, profile, and do all of those things means that you can then have separate communications, autoresponders, letters, phone calls, face-to-face, whatever it is, and you can start to really engage with your customers on a deep level. The trouble is with a lot of marketing and businesses is they don't want to dive into the detail. And so they kind of think, oh, it'll be all right, we'll just have these 3 autoresponders. And what I'm saying is, if you do it really, really well, and you develop really good autoresponders with this really well thought through tag taxonomy of what people do, and so they clicked on this link in an email, they bought that product, they phoned up and had a conversation about X, they did all these things, okay, and then they get funneled and channeled. So if they phoned up and had a conversation about X, then sales guy has to phone them back within 24 hours, whatever it is. And so you create these workflows, sales flows, like through the mountains, down to the rivers, to your house of enchantment, and you make your customer feel like they are being looked after in your golden house of enchantment. And the best way to do that is with a CRM, and to absolutely deeply understand your customer. And the only way to do that in modern society, I think, if you're handling more than a few clients is with a CRM. So the very last thing with this is everything then stems from the fact that your CRM becomes this central resource of knowledge and information and data, and that could become overly complex and a monster, or it can become this fantastic machine which then actually gives you this huge confidence and creates a fantastic sort of vision of the business, what's going on, why, how much are we going to sell, when, and it provides you with predictability and consistency, so you can preempt what's going to go on in your business, you can invest in new things, and you can move your business forward in a way where you're confident you are not going to take too much risk and destroy everything you've built. So thank you so much for watching this video. If it was useful, I really do hope you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it if you can, help us help other people like you, other micro businesses that are looking to grow and build a proper business. And do check out our free Facebook group and some of the courses on our website. And I'm really grateful for you watching the video. Thank you very much.